Some of you I have seen at the booth downstairs, so I'm happy to see you here again. My name is Carmen from I'm from Canada, and I'm with the Aquarian team. You saw some quick presentation here. The Aquarian team is a team of students of the teaching of Omra Michaela Ivanhoff. In the first book, we are 9 authors. In the second book, we are 8 authors. And today, I feel particularly honored to be here because the inspiration behind this light and color workshop is the relationship that I particularly hold between the ARE and with the teaching of Omra Michaela Ivanhoff. My teacher and spiritual guide, Omra Michaela Ivanhoff, was here in 1981. And this is the picture taken with Yulin Casey in 1981. Omra Michaela Ivanhoff had a very high respect for Edgar Casey. When he saw his picture, he said he exuded goodness, and that the clairvoyancy was absolutely wonderful from Edgar Casey. So I followed in the steps of Omra Michaela Ivanhoff in 1981 by a few months. At the time I met Charles Thomas Casey, and I was doing a special research on the White Brotherhood, because the teaching of Omra Michaela Ivanhoff is the teaching of the Universal White Brotherhood. Now, Master Omra Michaela Ivanhoff says the great Universal White Brotherhood is above. They're high evolved beings, and we are here a mere representation of this great Universal White Brotherhood, and we allow them to work through us to uplift ourselves and mankind. So for me to be here and deliver this talk today is very meaningful. It bridges my experience with the Edgar Casey readings and the teaching of Omra Michaela Ivanhoff, which I've been following for over 40 years. Now let's go on with our talk. Light and colors, and you will see it will be colorful. So, it says that there are 7 spirits before the throne of God, and they are the spirits of the 7 colors. How does that relate to us today? Is it something so far away and inaccessible that it's just a floating meaning? Well, we will see how it actually affects every one of us. So I would like first to start talking about the light. You know how it is said in the Christian Bible that God created the light on the first day, but it's actually on the 4th day that he talked about the light that made the difference between night and day. So therefore, we're talking on the 4th day, that is the upper light, or the sun, and the lesser light, which is the moon. So what are they referring to when they talk about the light of the first day? Well, in French, in English, or in Spanish, the light, la lumière, la luz, it's all the same word. But in Bulgarian, they have 2 terms for the light. The physical light that allows us to see obstacles that we can move about without hurting ourselves is called Svetlina. And the light that is referred to on the first day is actually called Videlina. And the reason why there's a difference in Bulgarian is because this invisible light is also light. It's invisible, but it permeates the entire universe. It's the light in which we have our existence. It's the light through which we move. So this invisible light is the one that contains the color. How we perceive this light is, let's say somebody explains something and you're kind of following what they say, and all of a sudden you say, I see what you mean. It wasn't your eyes that saw what he meant. It was your awareness of consciousness. Keep that in mind. This awareness of consciousness is just like when we talk about electricity. We don't see it, but it is there. When we operate with it, we flick the lights on. So that invisible light that was created on the first day is the very powerful light. It is the light through which spirit manifests. You remember when you and I went to school, there was only the atom, the proton, the protecton, neutron, proton, and electron. Yeah. Okay, so now they have gone so far advanced into science that they're down to the Higgs boson, which is, they call it the God particle. They cannot see it with their eyes, but their instrument is getting developed enough that they can analyze it. When the great initiates talk about illumination, this is the kind of light they're talking about, this vidivina, and the difference is the perception in our consciousness. So in our first book, when we talk about involution and evolution, at one point we state that Einstein was maybe developed, let's say, at 8% of his total potential. Well, we'll be modest, we'll say we're maybe at 4 or 5% at our level. Imagine that 100% is called illumination, and this is our Christ self. This is how much the light is powerful in your awareness of consciousness. So that's what we have to develop. We have to develop ourselves with this light in which we swim. We have our existence, and we don't perceive it because we don't have the awareness of consciousness. So now we're going to proceed, magic button, with the light in the 7 colors. You know a prism? Somewhere in my purse, but I won't go out. So you see, it's like the triangle, the prism. In order for the 7 colors to reveal themselves, you need to have 3 components. You need to have the white light, you need to have the prism, and then the 7 colors appear. But the prism has to meet certain conditions. The prism has to be pure. If it's too full of imprints or if it has flaws in it, the colors will not shine as beautifully as if it was a perfect equilateral and transparent crystal. So these 7 colors are there everywhere in space, but to see them through a crystal or a prism, you see the brightest of the colors, the truest of the colors. Now with colors and numbers, we spoke about the 3 elements, the beam of light, which is also, you see the rainbow down there. In order for the rainbow to manifest its colors, which again are there in space, we don't see them unless we come across the elements. So we need the beam of light, we need the equilateral triangle, which in the case of the rainbow would be the droplets of water. And the third element is you get the decomposition in the spectrum of the 7 colors. The rainbow, which is the most masterpiece, beautiful piece of Mother Nature. Of course, if we don't have these 3 components, the colors are there, but we don't see them. So again, you need to have the 3 components. Where does that take us? Well, the colors are so well created that they each have a wavelength, a frequency, a musical note. In this case, for example, we inverted the prism in order to show the color following the frequency here. So the red has a slower movement and a vaster stretched movement. As you go up in the color, you start vibrating faster and faster. And when you get to the violet color, it vibrates very, very fast on a very short space-time. Keep that in mind, because as we develop ourselves and we purify ourselves, it means that our frequency changes. For example, and I'll go to the basis of all explanations, is if you take somebody who has no control over their sensuality, they're rapist, they would be in a very slow brownish color there. That's the frequency at which they are. Of course, we know better. So we have worked on ourselves, and now our colors are getting brighter and brighter, and the frequency increases. Remember when we talked about the equilateral triangle or the prism, we said that it had to be pure, without any flaw. Well, we are constructed on a triangle, if you want. Symbolically, we are a trinity because we have the mind, the heart, and the willpower, our three sides of the triangle. Now, most of us, we're obtuse triangle, if not obstinate triangles, because we get stuck on having too much willpower, which means we don't reflect very much. We don't consider others. We just plow through things. That's when the willpower is to develop. Somebody who's too developed in the intellectual mode would be maybe very bright in their field, but the other sides of them, their willpower may be weak. They may have some, let's say, drug addiction or alcohol addiction, or they may have a heart that doesn't feel anything. So in order for us to reflect all the beautiful colors that are out there, remember, what's missing is the awareness of consciousness, is that we have to work on our triangle. We have to develop ourselves with the mind, with the heart, and with the willpower. How does that reflect in nature? Great teachers like Omran Mikhail Ivanov, he says it in his books, the initiates always like to try to find the correspondence with Mother Nature. In nature, we have electricity, which corresponds to the light. It has magnetism, which corresponds to the warmth. And it has movement, which corresponds to action. So in nature, you can have movement by rubbing two pieces of wood, then you get the spark of wood and you get the light. So you have all three components. The sun is the best representation of light, warmth, and life. For us, it translates into wisdom, love, and behavior, proper action. The great initiates, what they do is they work on themselves and they balance their triangle so that they become a prism and they have all the colors, all the spectrum within their knowledge, their behavior. They integrate everything of those colors, everything of the knowledge of each of the spirit that is working with each color. Now, you know, in the Edgar Casey readings, it says, know thyself. Well, it was at the Temple of Delphi. And know thyself means not only know your habits, it means know your lower self, your intellect, your heart, your will. But this lower self here is the personality. And I think Edgar Casey even called it the personality and the individuality, the lower self and the higher self. So this is where we operate most of the time. Here we start to touch the region of the soul and the spirit. This is our higher self. In all of my talks, I say it is primordial that you know about your lower self and your higher self. It's very easy to have a criteria. The lower self always pulls the blankets its way. It wants to be right. It doesn't know how to listen. It wants to impose its will. It's everything that gets on your nerves. Okay? And how is the higher self? The higher self is very compassionate. It's a good listener. It thinks of others first. How beautiful. But we have to develop that. We all have that potential. Now see the connection between the lower self and the higher self, and the connection between the Buddhic body and the astral body, and the causal body with the intellect. There is a connection. When you purify and develop these, you automatically work on these. So if there's anything else you retain from today, is know about your lower self and your higher self, and you will progress. Because it's a work on oneself. It means we have to be aware of our thoughts, of our feelings, and the reason behind our actions. Nothing new, eh? It's just brought in another form of language. Now, our aura. How many of you don't know anything about auras? Or you've never heard anything about auras? Okay. The aura is composed of the energy that is around us. First of all, we have our physical body. We have our etheric body that contains the vitality of our body. And beyond the etheric body, we have our subtle bodies, which is form of our thoughts, our feelings, and our action. The aura has certain functions. It's like the skin of our spiritual self. It's like our skin, it protects us. It allows exchanges, like it receives energy from the sun, from the moon, from the planets and the constellation. If some people say, oh, I'm badly aspected with Mercury, well, it may be that there's something in them that doesn't vibrate very well with Mercury. So it receives influences, it interprets the influences according to their level of consciousness. Because Mercury itself is not good and it's not bad. It has a powerful energy, yes, but it's how you feel, how you are in your state of consciousness that makes Mercury effective or defective. And you know, Mercury is communication. So when there's all problems in communication, you maybe have to ask yourself, how's my communication with my higher self first? And then the third aspect of the aura is it allows perception. That's how you feel the energy of the soul of somebody else. Sometimes you get close to someone and you say, oh, I feel such a repulsion towards that person. It's the aura that senses things, like the colors don't mix. So that perception becomes very instrumental when you're sensitive and you can interpret properly, because then you have to rise at a level where through your compassion you can actually help that person. It's like tuning in and finding what that person needs at that moment to help them. So it's very important that as we develop and our aura becomes clearer and brighter, that we assume responsibility for the sensitivity that we develop so that we can be of service for others through the colors that emanate from us. And don't worry, there's a law of attraction that'll make you meet the right person to help. Okay? You follow me? Okay. So earlier when we looked at wavelengths, we saw that the red was moving slowly and it had a long stretch of space it required. In this one, we're going to look as if we were on top. So the red is down at the bottom and it rolls slowly. And that's vitality, that's the force of life. It has its place. It's not negative. Every one of these colors has a function and attribute and is necessary to form the full spectrum. But as we go higher and higher in consciousness, we vibrate faster and faster into the cone. The cone for great teachers, masters, initiates, and Omra Michaela Ivanov mentions that the language of the initiate is symbolic. They use geometrical figures to express a whole teaching. So the cone is a symbol of elevation, reaching towards our divinity. So as we develop, we get closer and closer. You know, when you use your camera and you bring your camera into a focus, then there's an energy that goes that way and brings you out the picture that you want to take. You're focusing. Same thing in meditation. You bring all your energy into one point, and there should be an awareness of consciousness that broadens out, right? In that broadening of consciousness, for the great initiates who have all the 7 colors, it becomes pure white light, because that is what the condensation of all the colors is. It's pure light. So when we talk about a great master that has received illumination, they are in that pure light that we talked about that is invisible, because it's their consciousness. It's in their consciousness that it takes place, that expansion where all the colors become pure white light. It's like the omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience of God is within that energy of invisible light. So, now we'll look at each color and each their attribute. In the red, we have the spirit of life and love for all creatures. Those of you who are familiar with the chakras, is the Muladhara chakras, the lowest of the chakra, related to the sexual organs. When we talk about musical note here in terahertz, is we took the purest of the red that we could find. But it is said that there's 40,000 shades of red, not of gray, of red. So the terahertz that we have here is like for the purest red we could find. The day of the week that corresponds to red is Tuesday. The planet is Mars. The astrological sign is Aries and Scorpio. And the tree of life. Are any one of you familiar with the Kabbalah? The Kabbalah is the Jewish system of understanding the creation. Edgar Casey spoke about the Kabbalah, and so did Omara Michaela Ivanov. That's volume 32, somewhere in here. Maybe in the purse again. So the Gibura is the Sephirot that corresponds to the color red. And the name of the angelical order connected to the color red is the Seraphim or the powers. Now we go into the color red.
Sorry, Carmen, just click on it.
Yeah. From the red we go to the orange. It's the spirit of sanctity. It's the one that improves our health and gives us the desire to perfection. The second chakra, up from the bottom one, Svadhisthana. You have the terahertz corresponding, the day of the week, the planet, the astrological sign, the Sephirot, and the angelical order. It's a lot of information, but when you want to work with color, if you associate yourself to each of the attributes and you consciously welcome them as if they were actually spirits. In Edgar Casey, he says, colors are radiation of the spirit realm. In this case, the orange is the spirit of sanctity. And that's why we can say that each color is important. Each of them compose this pure white light. The yellow is the spirit of wisdom. It incites us to read, to reflect, meditate, and seek wisdom. It's connected to our solar plexus, the Manipura. You have the terahertz. Wednesday is a bright day to wear yellow. Mercury is the planet. Gemini and Virgo. In the Sephirot, Hod, which is also related to the Bnai Elohim for the angelical order. The green, spirit of eternity. It's in charge of evolution. It involves growth, development, and also wealth. The American dollar is green. The forefathers knew that green was the color to become rich with. All of nature is in green because it's growth, it's development. It's also the balancing color between what they call the cold color and the warm colors, because it's right into the middle of the two color system. Now we move on to it's a lighter blue, like a sky blue. It's the spirit of truth. It's associated with peace, religion, and music. So you often see for peace the symbol of the dove in a blue background. It fits very well because the blue background is the spirit of peace. There you have the chakra, and that's at the heart level. It's more at the throat level, pardon me. It's at the throat level. And it's Thursday. Jupiter, Sagittarius, Hesed, and Hashmalim are the angelical order. The navy blue, which is at the level of the third eye, is the spirit of strength and royalty. And it shares the same property as the blue because of the peace, the religion, the philosophy connected with it. Hajna is the chakra. Saturday is the day to wear blue. I see some blue here. Saturn, Capricorn, and Aquarius for the astrological sign, and the Sephirot is Bina, angelical order, the thrones. Now we come to the purple, or violet as you like to call it, spirit of omnipotence, divine love, and sacrifice. When great initiates are able to develop this color fully, they're not there for themselves anymore. They're there to be of service. They're there to help others, to guide others. They're there because they're totally of service. Okay, medicine of the future. Let's look at light to start with. You see that already the laser light is being used in operating tables. There's several applications. They say in England it's far more developed than in North America. Wave shock is a therapy that has become known in Canada. That's where I'm from. They use it to dissolve stones in the kidneys, and they send an impulsion of laser light, and the stones dissolve. It's wonderful. We already are looking at how life can be in the future without a bisturi or without any bleeding.